The final update to Iceborne is here, and with it comes one of the toughest challenges in the game. Fatalis the Black Dragon will test even the best of hunters. So I'm Darcblade with an Anti-Fatalis build for the Light Bowgun in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Now as always, an anti-build, sometimes referred to as a counter build, is a build that is made to take on a specific monster in the game. And whilst in all honesty Fatalis can be taken on with any set, the builds in this series are aimed to make the hunt more manageable. When it comes to the Light Bowgun, it has multiple ways to take on Fatalis, which are all based around what ammo type you want to use, with most people tending to favour spread ammunition or sticky ammunition for the Fatalis hunt. And as we featured a spread build for the heavy bowgun, for the light bowgun we'll be instead focusing on a sticky ammunition build. This means that we don't have to worry about affinity whatsoever on this build, and we can easily attack pretty much any part of Fatalis, getting the hunt done effectively whilst keeping our distance from the monster. So for the Anti-Fatalis Light Bowgun build, you'll need the Zora Headgear Beta, the Golden Loon Meld Beta, Zora Claws Beta, Golden Loon Coil Beta, and the Zora Spurs Beta. I'm also using the Razor Sharp Charm, and for my weapon I'm using the Safi Aqua Shot. The awakened abilities on this weapon are solely attack increases, and as for the augmentations, I've gone for an attack increase augmentation and then an augmentation of your choice, to which I've gone for a defense increase augmentation. As for the specialist tools, again I've gone for the Temporal and Rocksteady Mantle for defensive purposes. So when it comes to the duels, first of all you have to take artillery duels for the artillery skill to increase the damage of our sticky ammunition. I've then gone for flawless duels to max out peak performance, increasing our raw attack, Vitality Jewels for health boost, Destroyer Jewels for part breaker, Release Jewels for the ammo up skill, and then you'll have a few jewels to play around with, so I've gone for a Crisis Jewel for the Resuscitate skill and Fortitude Jewel for the Fortify skill. As always, the jewels on the mantles, I've gone for Heavy Artillery Jewels for the Heavy Artillery skill. So if you've done what I've done here, you'll have a build with 150 health, 100 stamina, which will be 200 health and 150 stamina when you're on a hunt and taking all your relevant consumables. You have a raw attack of 429. This will be higher when you're on a hunt and you take into account peak performance. You have 5% affinity, but as we're using sticky ammunition, we don't have to worry about affinity on this build whatsoever. You'll have high deviation, unfortunately. For the custom mods, you'll need 2 recoil suppressors and 2 evade reloading mods. The recoil suppressors are so we don't lose control of our character when firing the weapon, so we can stay on the move and keep firing, and the evade reloading means that we can ignore the slow reload times that are found on sticky free ammunition. You also have the Wyvern Blast special ammo, and when it comes to your defense, you have an OK defense of 1040 that is strong against fire, but unfortunately weak to the other elements. So when it comes to the skills, first of all you have Artillery at level 5. This is a skill that will increase the damage of the sticky ammunition we'll be using mainly with this build. You have Divine Blessing at level 5. Divine Blessing is a skill that gives us a chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. This is our main defensive skill on this build. Obviously being able to keep our distance from a monster does have its advantages when it comes to defense, and should we be unfortunate enough to get hit, then hopefully Divine Blessing will reduce the damage. Anyway, you have Health Boost level 3, which allows our health to get to that maximum of 200. You have Ammo Up level 3, which increases the amount of bullets we have in a clip before we need to reload the weapon. Unfortunately, you will need Ammo Up at level 3 with this build, so you'll have 2 bullets in your clip before it needs reloading. Anyway, you have Part Breaker level 3, a useful skill when taking on Fatalis. Next up is Part Breaker at level 3. This is a skill that makes it easier for us to break monster body parts, which is very useful for the Fatalis hunt. There is a mechanic in the Fatalis hunt where if you don't break the horns by phase 3, Fatalis will gain blue flames, which can potentially one-shot hunters. So Part Breaker will make it easier for us to break its horns and survive the later phases. Anyway, you have Peak Performance at level 3. This is a skill that increases our raw damage when we have our health at maximum. With our health filled up, this will affect the damage of our sticky ammunition as well, allowing us to deal more damage. Just be aware not to stand in the fire pools that Fatalis can leave behind after some of its flame attacks. You have Flinch Free level 3, which is a byproduct of the armor we're wearing, but it's still kind of useful. It's a quality of life skill. Basically it negates minor knockbacks from monster attacks as well as your allies. You have Earplugs level 1, again another byproduct of the armor and is kind of wasted on this build. Earplugs normally allows you to ignore monster roars, but at level 1 it's going to do nothing when it comes to the Fatalis roars. Anyway, you have Fortify level 1, which is a useful skill when taking on difficult hunts in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Every time you cart and faint and come back, you'll come back with increased raw attack as well as defense. This buff can be applied twice to a hunter. You also have Resuscitate level 1. This is an optional skill thanks to the jewels we're using. Resuscitate is a skill that kicks in whenever you have a blight on your hunter. So in the case of Fatalis, we're looking at Fire Blight. When this is active, your hunter will gain increased evasion capabilities as well as reduced stamina consumption. You'll also have Spare Shot level 1, which is a useful quality of life skill for any bowgun user out there, as it gives us a chance at not consuming a bullet when we fire the weapon. And then finally you have Heavy Artillery level 2 when you're wearing your mantles. This is a skill that increases the damage of the artillery found in Shred Castle, so cannons, ballista and such, by 100%. So when you're going to fire them, always make sure you have a mantle ready before doing so. And then finally for the set bonuses, you'll have 2 of them. First of all is the Zora Magdaros Essence Artillery Secret, allowing us to get the artillery from level 3 to a maximum of level 5, increasing the damage of our sticky ammunition. And you'll also have the Gold Raffian Essence Divine Blessing Secret, which gives us a higher chance at taking reduced damage when we take a hit from a monster. So there we have it, that is the build I'd recommend for taking on Fatalis with the Light Bowgun. It's efficient, can hit pretty much any part of Fatalis, so you can easily attack the head, ultimately breaking it, allowing you to finish the hunt. But every build out there has pros and cons. When it comes to the pros with this build, its biggest pro is its damage output. Its raw damage output is quite high, and thanks to the fact that we're using sticky ammunition, it doesn't matter where we hit the monster, so we don't have to worry about hit zones. The sticky ammunition explosions will be doing the same amount of damage whether you hit the monster on the nose or the tip of the tail. Which brings us on to the next pro, which means that we don't have to worry about affinity on this build at all. As sticky ammunition, as I mentioned, does fixed damage, it means that we don't have to take any affinity based skills, which frees up decoration slots for other quality of life and defensive skills. And the final pro, which is more of a pro for the Light Bowgun itself in a way, is that this build is quite effective at breaking Fatalis' horns, allowing you to survive those later phases. Once you're more experienced with Fatalis' moves and abilities, you can normally time your shots so your sticky ammunition is always being attached to the monster's head, helping you break those horns. But unfortunately every build out there has cons. The biggest con for this build is the fact that it has no evasion skills. Normally when taking on the tougher monsters in Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I would always recommend taking the likes of Evade Window or Evade Extender, but this build doesn't have it. It does have Divine Blessing, which kind of makes up for it, but when you also take into account the fact that the Light Bowgun can keep its distance from Fatalis, allowing you to pretty much see what's coming, you should be able to avoid attacks without having the evasion skills. And the other con, which is more of a con for all bowguns out there, is unfortunately you're going to have ammo issues, as in there'll be times where you need to go back to camp to restock, and on top of that, especially because we're using sticky ammunition, you're going to have to use the radial menu to craft ammunition mid-hunt in order to stay in the fight. But regardless, this is an effective build for taking on Fatalis as long as you're being fairly aggressive with your shots. As long as you keep plastering the monster with your sticky ammunition, even if you're not hitting the most optimal body parts, this build will do sufficient enough damage to bring down the monster. So there we have it, that is the build I recommend for taking on Fatalis with the Light Bowgun. Now of course as you farm the monster more and more, you'll get Fatalis armor and weaponry, which is some of the best in the game, and should allow you to do the hunt more easily. But until then, this build will work just fine. So until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you an Anti-Fatalis build for the Light Bowgun in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.